of Money or a Bright Boy in Wall Street by a Self-Made Man. Chapter 1. A Heart of Flint. This is a story of one of the most popular and successful brokers in Wall Street, a man who today can sign his check for $1 million, and it shows how a brave boy whose only capital at the beginning was honesty, an unflagging energy, and a determined ambition to succeed in life, made his way to the front by his own efforts. Were we permitted to use his real name, his personality and the power he wields in the financial district of New York would be immediately recognized. But for obvious reasons, this privilege is denied us. One dark, misty October night, a poorly dressed little woman of 30, whose features bore the impress of refinement, timidly approached a handsome brownstone Fifth Avenue mansion, the windows of which were ablaze with light, and whence issued the subdued strains of one of Strauss's gay waltzes. She held the hand of a little boy of 8 years, a pretty, curly-headed lad, dressed in a well-worn suit that showed many a neatly sewn patch, and whose bright and intelligent face wore an eager and wistful look. At that moment a carriage dashed up to the awning, which extended down from the top of the stoop to the edge of the sidewalk. A well-fed footman, in tall silk hat with a cockade and a cream-colored surtout, jumped down while the vehicle was still in motion, and had his hand on the handle of the door when the carriage stopped. A gentleman in evening dress, followed by 2 elegantly attired ladies, got out, tripped up the carpeted steps, and entered the mansion, while the footman slammed the coach door, mounted quickly to his perch beside the driver, and the carriage drove briskly off into the gloom. The woman on the sidewalk drew her thin cloak closer about her, shrank against the iron railing of the area, and let her head drop in silent dejection, while her beautiful eyes filled with tears. She stood motionless for several minutes, until a slight tug at her hand recalled her to herself. "Yes, Bertie," she murmured in soft, tender accents as she drew the boy close to her. "Mamma knows you are cold and hungry, dear. We will go in here and see if a hard heart may not relent, at least for your sake." She opened the iron gate, descended 2 stone steps, and pulled a bell knob, which protruded alongside the closed entrance to the basement. A young woman servant presently came to the iron bars and curtly asked what the caller wanted. "I wish to see Mr. Stewart Sheldon," the visitor said in a low, musical voice. "Impossible," replied the servant in some surprise, regarding the misty figure outside curiously. "But indeed I must see him," persisted the little woman almost plaintively. "Who are you, and what is your business with Mr. Sheldon?" demanded the maid brusquely. There was a moment of silence. Then the caller, pressing one of her thin hands over her heart, said faintly, "I am his sister." The servant stared in amazement and made no reply. "Will you please let us in?" begged the visitor at the area gate. "My little boy is cold and—" But the words seemed to choke her, and it expired in a whisper which the servant did not hear. "It's against orders, ma'am," answered the maid. "But I must see my brother," pleaded the caller, "and surely his sister and nephew may be permitted to stand inside out of the night for a few moments." The servant, a new one at the house, was clearly puzzled how to proceed. It seemed preposterous to her that this poor-looking person outside the gate could be the sister, or any relation, in fact, of the elegant owner of that establishment, Stewart Sheldon, the rich Wall Street broker. What she would have done is uncertain, but at this moment an elderly woman, the housekeeper, came to the inner door and said sharply, "What are you doing here, Elizabeth? Who are you talking to?" "Here's a woman, ma'am, who insists on seeing Mr. Sheldon." "What's that?" exclaimed the housekeeper tartly. "She says she's his sister." "His sister?" The housekeeper walked quickly outside and looked through the bars of the gate. "Mrs. Bunce," asked the little woman in the area, "you will let us in, will you not? And bring my brother to me?" The housekeeper uttered an exclamation and quickly unlocked the gate. "Come in, Mrs. Ballister," she said with some emotion in her voice. "The sister of Mr. Sheldon ought not to stand like this outside his door.
And is this your little boy?" she added sympathetically. "Yes, my Bertie."
Mrs. Bunce put her arm around the little woman and assisted her inside the house and into the dining room. As the visitor sank into one of the leather upholstered chairs and cast a shrinking glance about the well-remembered room, 1,000 memories rushed upon her, and she bent her face in her hands and wept.
"You poor dear," said the housekeeper soothingly. "I am afraid things have not gone well with you." "I'm not complaining," answered the little woman in a choked voice. "I would not have come to my brother's tonight. I would have continued to suffer in silence, but, oh, Mrs. Bunce, I cannot see my little boy die for want of the nourishment it is impossible for me to provide. He has had nothing to eat all day, not a crust. Oh, Father in heaven, what will be the end of it all?"
The housekeeper immediately ran out of the room and returned presently with a tray on which were a couple of brimming glasses of milk, 2 plates, a platter of cold meat, and some bread and butter.
"Sit up to the table, both of you," said Mrs. Bunce energetically. "I'm having a cup of strong tea made for you, Mrs. Ballister." "I'm afraid I can scarcely eat a morsel," replied the little woman, with a sad smile, as she tenderly helped her son to the table. "It is very good of you, Mrs. Bunce. I shall never forget your kindness." "You forget that you were my mistress before you were married, Mrs. Ballister. You were always considerate and kind to the household, and not one here who remembers you but would feel pleased and honoured to do you a service. We have often thought of you and wondered how you were getting along. It is sad to know that your marriage estranged you from your family and from your friends, you who once was such a social favourite." "The past is a blissful dream," faltered the visitor with a sigh. "It is gone, never to return. As long as my dear husband was alive I had no regret for the course I took. I simply followed the dictates of my heart. When he died, the present and future became a dreary picture, and I should have prayed for death to end it all but for my little boy, my Bertie. The image of him I shall never see again in this world."
And she broke down and cried bitterly.
"Dear Mrs. Ballister, you must not give way to useless grief. You are still young, and you have your little boy's future to consider. Who knows but your brother may bury his anger now that you are without a protector? Alas, I fear to meet him. He cast me from him and swore I should never darken his doors again, that he would see me and mine starve in the street before he would raise a finger in my behalf. He is a man of strong passions, Mrs. Bunce. You do not know him as I do. Once he takes a stand he is as inflexible as adamant. I have written to him since my husband's death, asking his forgiveness, not for myself, but for my child. He has utterly ignored me. I should not be here now, but a mother's love has nerved me to make one last appeal to him. I was his favourite sister. Perhaps—"
"What does this mean, Mrs. Bunce?" cried a stern voice from the door. The housekeeper sprang up with a start, while the visitor, with a choking cry, half rose and turned around at the voice she had not heard in nearly 10 years. Mr. Stewart Sheldon, in evening attire, a frown as dark as a thunder-gust on his handsome, aristocratic face, was regarding his head domestic with angry impatience. If he had looked at all at the trembling little woman, through whose veins coursed blood as blue as his own, who was bound to him by the sacred name of sister, it was but a passing glance, for he utterly ignored her presence.
"I beg your pardon, Mr. Sheldon," replied Mrs. Bunce, recovering her self-possession. "I hope you will excuse the liberty I have taken, but this lady is your sister. She has come to your door begging to see you, she and her little boy. They are in absolute want. Neither has eaten a mouthful in 24 hours to this moment. I ask you, sir, could you expect me to turn them away, to shut the area gate of the house that once was Mrs. Ballister's home in her face? We are not accustomed to do that to even a stranger in real distress, sir, as you know and approve. How much less—"
"Mrs. Bunce," "I believe the kitchen is the proper place to entertain such persons," replied Mr. Sheldon icily.
"True, sir, but your sister—"
"Mrs. Bunce, you forget yourself." The visitor had gradually raised herself to her feet, gazing with distended eyes upon the big broker, whose very presence seemed to fill the room. Now she stretched out one arm, appealing.
"Stewart, brother!"
she cried. He turned upon her like a flash, his look piercing her through and through. "Madam, to whom do you apply those terms? I beg you will recollect yourself."
"Oh, brother, will you not have pity? Look at me and be merciful. Once I was your favorite sister, now—"
"You are nothing to me, madam," he answered harshly.
"Nothing?"
she cried, shrinking against the table, to which she clung like a reed swayed by the chill breath of a wintry wind. The hopeless despair expressed by her voice would have almost melted a heart of stone, but it made no impression on the proud man who faced her. "Nothing," he replied coldly. "You have made your choice, Mrs. Ballister, and must abide by it." She bowed her head for a moment. Then she straightened up. She seemed suddenly transformed in one instant from the shrinking little outcast to a woman who resented the attitude of the man before her. A touch of the Sheldon family pride shone from her tearless eyes. For the moment she was not unfortunate Mrs. Ballister, widow of a poor artist who had wooed and won her from a luxurious home, but Edith Sheldon, the society favorite of 10 years before.
"Stewart Sheldon," she said slowly and distinctly, "I came here tonight not to ask anything for myself. I know too well the implacable side of your nature. I am your sister, but if I were your wife and had crossed your will, I should expect as little mercy. I came here for my child's sake."
Her voice broke and tears started to her eyes, but she drove them back.
"He is all I have now. I ask you to do something for him. If I, his mother, must bear my cross, is it fair, I ask you, Stewart Sheldon, that he, an innocent angel, should suffer too? If I must starve, is it right that he should starve also? You who are living in luxury have the power to save him. Will you do it?"
"You have a lot of nerve, Mrs. Ballister, to ask me to put myself out for another man's brat." The final word struck her like a blow in the face. "Yes," he went on, lashing himself into a white heat of fury, "you dare ask me to care for Edward Ballister's son, the man who took you from me, the man whose very memory I hate second to nothing in this world. No, 1,000 times no! That boy is his very image. I would see him dead in the street before I would give him a crust to eat. Do you understand me? It is because of that boy I have ignored your letters. Had he not been born, or were he dead, I might forget the past, reinstate you in your old place in this house and in my heart. But while he lives, you have nothing to expect from me. Absolutely nothing. I hope you understand." Edith Ballister understood and flashed one look at her brother, which spoke volumes. Then she turned to her frightened little boy.
"Come, Bertie,"
she said without a tremor in her voice.
"We will go, you and I, for we are not wanted here. Perhaps the day will come when you will own a house as grand as this, but you will have to make it yourself, and I think you will."
Thus speaking, she led the boy from the room and the house.